Welcome to In the Zone. I'm Chris Broussard, your host. I'm honored to have today's guest in, my man Sekou Smith. What's happening, brother?
Yeah, man. Good to see you.
Great to have you here. Covered the Indiana Pacers in the city of Indianapolis. Covered the Atlanta Hawks as an NBA reporter. Now, for the past several years, has been with NBA TV and NBA.com. So very knowledgeable about the game of basketball. Might actually give me a little run for my money in the debate, but you can determine that. But let's get right into it. LeBron, after last night's game, they went down 3-0. He made this strong comment about the Warriors.
Before the series even started, we knew we was dealing with I said it after we won the East Conference Finals, that we getting ready for a juggernaut. I mean, it's probably the most firepower, I've played in my career. I've played against some great teams, but I don't think no team has had this type of firepower. So even when you playing well, you got to play like A++, because they're gonna make runs and they're gonna make shots and they got guys that's gonna make plays. So, we made enough plays tonight to still win the ball game, but they made a couple more.
All right, Sekou, is this the best team LeBron James has ever faced?
Yeah, look, I think if you look at the ages of the stars on this Warriors team, all these guys under 30 years old, it's different. It's a different animal than that 2014 Spurs team they dealt with, where Kawhi was on the ascent. Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony Parker were all at a later stage, really, in their careers. He hasn't really faced another superstar-driven team like that. If you think about it in the finals, that Thunder team was young.
Very young.
KD, Russ, James Harden, they weren't yet what they would become in this league. I think, fair or not, this is a more powerful Warriors team than the one he faced last year and beat.
Yeah.
Because they got Kevin Durant.
Oh, no question. And I would even throw in that Boston team he couldn't get through when he was in Cleveland with the big three, Garnett, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. As great as they were, that's 3 Hall of Famers. They weren't as good as this team because, like you said, they were toward the latter stages of their careers.
Twilight.
Still kind of in their prime, but certainly toward the end. And this Warriors team, the fact is the Cavs are just overmatched.
No question.
Simply put, look, I've talked about, I think Ty Lue should slow down the pace, but I don't even think that will work. I think that's your best opportunity, but I still don't think that will work. This is a team that's going to have 4 Hall of Famers. They got 4 players that have been all NBA. They've got 2 MVPs in their prime. Arguably the best offensive team we've ever seen. One of the best maybe defensive teams. They don't have that big guy in the middle, but they still protect the rim. They block shots. They're long and athletic, can switch up. And I know you're not going to like this because you're from Detroit or Michigan, but I think this is the best backcourt ever. And I know Isaiah and Dumars would be second, I guess. At
this point, I think it's fair, though. I think it's a fair determination to make because these guys are now at a championship level, potentially with 2 titles, Steph and Clay. You forgot, they got a finals MVP coming off the bench in Andre Iguodala, who spends time during these games guarding LeBron. I mean, think about the number of guys that the Warriors can deploy to guard LeBron James. So there's no question about the depth and talent of this Warriors team. The other aspect about the Warriors, to me, that makes them a completely different monster than anybody we've seen is because they're playing in an era where you can take a 27-foot shot and not have to get taken out the game and sit next to the coach.
Right.
Like, you talk to Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, they laugh at you if they ever thought they could have taken shots that Steph and Clay take.
That's right.
Whether they could have made them or not. And
Right.
I think the style and the pace and space era lends itself to this roster. You add Kevin Durant to that, it makes it a completely untenable situation for you to try and beat them playing their style. That's where I think the Cavaliers have really faltered in this series. The times, and it's been brief, it's been very brief stretches of this series so far, where they looked like they had some control was when the game slowed down and they had to play in the half court.
Yep, I'm totally with you. Sometimes to win a championship or win whatever it is, you have to change your style.
Absolutely.
The Cavs say that they play fast. First of all, they don't. They were 16th in the league in pace, 16th in the league in fast break points. But even if you did play fast, to win this series, you got to play slow. And you can't be too stubborn not to change. I'll use some boxing analogies. Sugar Ray Leonard, when he fought Tommy Hearns, first time. Sugar Ray was a boxer. Hearns was outboxing him. So Sugar Ray became a slugger to win the fight, and he did. Ali, when he was going to fight Foreman, he was going to dance for 15 rounds, right? Get him tired. Foreman was cutting off the ring too well against him. So he had to go to the rope-a-dope to win. So I think you have to not be too stubborn to change your style. Look, again, the Cavs probably wouldn't have won anyway, but that's hurting them. So they're going to lose this series, and I think get swept.
I do too, but I think on this stage, you have to be willing to show the courage to step away from what it is you do best and make that adjustment. And a lot of times you get players, you get coaches with this scrutiny on them, and when you've done something as long as the Cavs have, think about it now. This is 3 years of them building towards trying to play a style that matches the Warriors, which to me is the folly of what they've done. They've gone out and tried to assemble a team that's going to outshoot the greatest shooting team of all time. It's like I would go the exact opposite. I would try and pound the Warriors as much as I could and make Zaza Pachulia be the weak spot for them.
Totally agree. And we know it's a copycat league, but I've been saying that. Cleveland used to be a hard-nosed defensive team, and Matthew Dellavedova isn't great, but they miss him a little bit.
Timo Mozgov, they changed.
Yeah, they changed. And they can't outshoot the Warriors. It's the best shooting team ever. I want to ask you this. I know we're going over the time for this question. Where do you, there's talk now about this being an all-time great team. What are your thoughts on that? Can you rank them, or what do you think?
I think, first and foremost, obviously, they got to win this fourth game, win the championship, because that's the only time, to me, where we can start talking about you being, in the hierarchy of the greatest teams of all time.
Like the 73 team is
right.
out.
They didn't finish.
Yep.
And a lot of us said that leading into that finals. As long as they finish it off, it validates the 73 wins. If they don't, that 73 is a footnote on that season. Now, if you take the 3-year stretch, the 73 wins, the championship the first year, and now potentially an undefeated postseason, then I take that whole sandwich and start talking about it being one of the greatest 3-year stretches that we've seen in league history. As an individual team, though, I keep coming back to this one thing that bothers me. Every other all-time great team would have a foil for this Warriors team. Kobe, Shaq, Lakers, Showtime, Lakers.
Kareem.
That big man would always be there. Jordan's, 96 Bulls, the 72-win team, they wouldn't have a great big man, but they would have two foils for the Warriors' two best players.
Yep.
You'd have Michael Jordan and Scottie to match up with Steph and Durant. So it's like, to me, they're in the conversation, and on paper, they're without question going to be at the top of that list because of the 16-0 if they do it. But if we had to put them all in a tournament, who's going to guard Shaq? Who's going to guard Shaq?
That is the huge problem. Number one, you can talk about the rules. Okay, when 96 Bulls, the three-point line was 22 feet for those 3 years. I mean, can you imagine this team with a 22-foot three-point line?
Layups.
Yeah, but you could hammer cats going to the rim. So when Steph's going to the rim, he's getting leveled. And do you keep going to the rim? It was more physical. You can hand check. But beyond the rules, like you said, there's no way they could guard Shaq. You can't even think about putting Draymond Green on Shaq.
No.
Same thing with Kareem. There's nobody that can stop his sky.
Not Showtime, Lakers, Kareem.
Now, on the other hand, these guys are shooting three-pointers. Like, they're going to bring Kareem out maybe when they go
the floor
small
is defended totally different in this era.
It's really hard to compare because of the way the game has changed. But
the other part about it, too, that I always think about is there were no Patrick McCaws getting minutes. And no offense to Pat McCaw, but there were no guys like that would get minutes in that era in the playoffs. Now, because of the way you play, the pace you play at, your rotation is much deeper in the playoffs. I don't know if that guy gets on the court against the Byron Scotts and the Michael Coopers and these guys and has a chance to survive in a series. But it's all theoretical. You're talking about taking ghosts, throwing them in the machine, and trying to see how it plays out.
Yeah. All right, man, let's get to the next question.
All right. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, but do you think Cleveland lost Game 3 or did Golden State win the game?
I'm going to give it to Golden State winning it. I know you can say Cleveland kind of fizzled down the stretch. They were outscored 11-0 at the end. But Golden State stepped up and made plays. You have to give them credit for what they did, especially Kevin Durant. He scored 7 in that 11-0 stretch. And that's their shooting ability. Yeah. The Cavs had open looks too. Kyle Korver gets an open look in the corner. We know the corner three is the shortest three-pointer, right? J.R. Smith had a look at one point. Kevin Love missed the layup inside. LeBron missed like a 12-footer. Kyrie from the same spot that he had the three-point shot last year. He missed
Step
it.
back.
He was short.
Deeper
But-
step back this time.
Yeah, a little
much,
deeper.
Much more significant.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they missed those shots, whereas the Warriors stepped up and made them. And so I'm going to give the Warriors credit. I know the Cavs fizzled and made some mistakes. I think some mental errors. They didn't foul Draymond with like 20 seconds left. They waited for, I don't know why, and then fouled Kevin Durant, which is ridiculous. He hits the 2 free throws, of course. So I think they definitely made some mistakes. But the Warriors are a superior team, and they made the shot, so I'm going to give them credit rather than just blame Cleveland.
See, and I think a lot of the blame lies with Cleveland. They got fatigued, and they got out of the rhythm that they had been in, playing it a slow-down game, playing in half-court sets, putting the Warriors behind the 8 ball in terms of trying to match them possession for possession. The minute they did that, Kyrie reverted to his habits. And I tweeted it during the game, and I believe this. When the adrenaline wears off in the finals atmosphere, you revert to whatever your habits are, whatever habits you've built. I'll say this now, and I'll say it forever. This Cavaliers team, for all that they did, they exhibited a ton of bad habits that have been built throughout the course of the season. And I think that's some of the residue of winning a championship.
Yep.
You come back and feel like, well, we can get away with some of the stuff we did because we won it last year without fixing these things. It came back to bite them in Game 3.
You talking about a lot of the ISO play and
ISOs,
stuff like that?
Laziness on defense. How many times you gonna let Steph Curry and Klay Thompson get open
Exactly.
on cross screens and running across the floor to get open for 3-point shots? These guys, you gonna let them get open for 3-point
I
shots?
saw times where Kyrie or some other player would double on Zaza, right, and leave Klay. And so they should have stuck to Steph and Klay and Durant. No matter what, don't go
Those
help.
three. Make everybody else beat you.
Stick on those three. And I think you brought up a good play about the isolation play. LeBron and Kyrie are obviously great ISO players. And that whole previous era was an isolation basket. Kobe kind of dominated the ball. Dwayne Wade dominated the ball. Steve Nash, Chris Paul, they're still playing, Paul, they dominated the ball. The Warriors play team basketball. When you and I were coming up, we were taught the pass is quicker than the dribble.
You can never keep up with the pass.
Yeah, don't over dribble. Pass the ball, and that's what the Warriors do. So they're bringing team basketball, and I think when the talent is comparable, team basketball is going to beat ISO basketball.
Think about 2014 Spurs.
Exactly. They weren't as talented as that Miami team.
They weren't as talented. They came back and beat them, shooting 48% from 3.
Yep.
They found a way to move the ball faster than the Heat's talent could move.
Yep.
And I think if you really look at the way LeBron plays, he facilitates. Even when he's playing ISO basketball, he's going to make the right pass.
Yeah.
You saw how many times he found the right guy for the shot that needed to be taken. Kyrie's his ISO is not the same thing.
Yeah.
His ISO is one-on-one for a shot. Now, 8 times out of 10, it ends up being Kyrie beating a bigger defender or a slower defender to the rim.
Yeah.
But when he's got to step back and take and make those big shots, he beat Steph for the game winner last year. He couldn't beat Klay this time around for what should have been the game tying or game winning shot in Game 3.
And I think that's because having the guard Steph and Klay and no Dellavedova or anybody to give you a break, you worn down.
Takes a toll on
and your legs are gone on that jumper. So, all right, let's move on. Look, Cleveland, we know down 0-3. Can you count LeBron James out at this point?
Normally I wouldn't, but yes. I've seen 12 quarters of this series. He's done any and everything a human being could do to keep his team in the game, and they have not been able to survive one time.
Yeah.
They got blown out in the first 2 games. Combined 41 points. A game at home, at the Q with the crowd going crazy, and Kevin Durant ran up the floor and pulled up for a 28-footer and let it hang on LeBron.
That's right.
Like, if that's not the kind of soul-crushing Game 3 finish that just wipes a team out, I don't know what is. I'm counting him out this time, and it's really the first time I've done that in a long time, since the elbow tweets. And back when his elbow had a Twitter feed. Right? I've not counted LeBron out since then. Unfortunately, I'm counting him out this time.
Nah, I'm with you. I'm counting him out. Look, I said before Game 3, I thought the Cavs were getting swept. I picked the Warriors in 6 before the series. After seeing those first 2, I was like, they're getting swept. Yeah. This is a better team, and this is the problem. In addition to being overmatched, this is the problem the Cavs have. The Warriors remember what happened last year. They remember we gave up a 3-1 lead. And heck, Kevin Durant did that too in Oklahoma City. Yeah. So they're not going to let their foot off the gas. I don't think they come out and fool around and showboat and maybe just don't bring their A game on Friday. I think they bring their A game and they punish Cleveland. I think eventually they'll win by double figures. I think Cleveland will play relatively well in the first half, maybe parts of the third quarter, and gradually it'll get away from them because it's human nature. I mean, this isn't last year. Nobody's suspended.
No.
And
nobody's hurt. Andrew Bogut's not hurt. You don't have to worry about that. I think the other thing, Chris, and you got to factor this in, there is a subconscious nature of any human being when there's a sense of inevitability. Like, if I'm the Cavs, and in my wildest dreams, I think, man, we got a chance to come back in this series. No offense to JR and his tweets. Well, okay, he said he didn't tweet it. He said somebody hacked him. You're not winning this series in 7. No. This is not that fairy tale. No. So you got to step into reality. And by halftime of Game 4, if you're the Cavaliers, you're not up 20.
Yep. You got to be up.
You got to be up. Your subconscious will not allow you to fake what you know is going on. You're going to get on that flight 5 hours and go back across the country.
Just to get beat.
To get smashed at Oracle. Why would you, why your inner being is not going to let you do that. You're going to go out with some pride. You're going to go out on your shield. But the Warriors are coming. Like, you saw the way Clay was shot hunting early in Game 3.
Yep.
That let me know that the Warriors, they got 16-0 on the mind. They know what's out there for them.
And that 6, look, you gave up. They feel like they gave away a championship. And we can argue whether or not they did or not. I don't want to take anything from Cleveland. But you can't get that back. Even winning this championship will not give you back a title. They could be working on a 3-peat.
Exactly.
And they're not going to forget that. But the closest thing you can get to it is 16-0.
Yeah.
Now you can say we didn't finish off the 73-win season. But now we coming back going 16-0.
Nobody.
And we talked about all time, this 3-year stretch, man, you're going to have to give them big-time love for the postseason record for wins and the regular season.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. All right. The conversation has been brewing since Game 1, since Kevin Durant went out and got 38, 8, and 8 on LeBron. You got this shot now. Is it time to start talking about Kevin Durant being the best player? I know it's crazy. Being the best player in the world right now.
I mean, look, the conversation is going to happen. I think sometimes we jump to conclusions when you win the finals. Yeah. I remember Paul Pierce, when they won it in 2008, he was the MVP, I believe, in those finals, and he played great. And he was saying he's the best player in the world. And I tweeted, or I said on TV or whatever, I don't know that Paul's in the top 10. And he texts me back like, you ain't in my top 10 local reporters, So dude's taking personally, but this does not mean KD is the best player. I think it's going to happen because LeBron's in his 14th year, whether it happens in the 15th year, the 16th year, whatever, it's going that way. But right now, I thought we saw for the first 45 minutes of Game 3 how LeBron was clearly still the best player in the world. I thought he was controlling the game. Not only he was scoring big, 25 points in the first half, but his passing. Yeah. He was setting
all around,
he was controlling the game in ways Durant can't. Durant can control it with his scoring. He's going to make some good defensive plays. But LeBron does everything. Yeah. So I think he's still the best player in the world.
I think there's a distinction, and we need to start having a more nuanced conversation when we bring this stuff up. LeBron is without question the best player in basketball on the planet Earth. No player's location determines the outcome of a season the way LeBron's does. But if you ask me, which guy do I want for this one game, crunch time with everything on the line, I think Kevin Durant might rank ahead of LeBron in terms of a crunch time, cutthroat assassin, clutch performer. I think if he wins this series in the way that it's played out, it's going to be hard to keep him off of that. See, would you want the ball in his hands or LeBron's with 12 seconds left in the game?
Well, he got so much more to go to offensively. See, LeBron, as great as he is, he doesn't really have a go-to shot. I mean, he'll go to the rim and either get fouled or try to make a layup. He's hit three-pointers, but we know he's not a great three-point shooter. He's hit mid-range jumpers, but not a great jump shooter. He doesn't have that move. Durant is a tremendous jump shooter, and he can go to it. So I'm with you there. And here's the other thing, though, that I look at. Right now, and this is taking nothing away from Durant, it's so much easier for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the responsibility. Now, he's got pressure on him because everybody was dogging him for going there.
Yeah.
And he's doing exactly what he had to do to get people off his back. Because I don't think people are going to criticize him after he leads them to a championship.
Well, you can say whatever you want about him in a couple of days. It ain't going to matter.
And, see, I do think that he had to come in this series and be at least a huge factor. Like, you had to I don't think if they had won this and he averaged 15, 17 points a game and Clay and Draymond or Steph lead them.
And win the finals MVP, that's different.
Yeah.
That's ring chasing.
Exactly. But when you go to a team and you lead them, and when you say they wouldn't have won it without him.
That's ring hunt.
You can't, exactly. You can't get on him for that. But I think that we saw it yesterday. The third quarter, I think he only had 1 point. He didn't do much.
He was very behind the scenes in that third quarter. But to me, that's also the beauty of what he does and how he does it, because you saw with LeBron off the floor.
Oh,
plus minus was what?
12.
I'll score by 12.
For 2.5 minutes.
Right. With him on the court, completely
plus 7.
different.
Yep.
With Durant, his game is such that he can dial into just being a scorer, just being an assassin late in the game in ways that a guy as good as LeBron is, as great, all-time great as he is, like you said, he doesn't have a go-to stretch where he can just make shots and get shots. He's going to make the right plays, but I don't know if he's going to get shots. And to me, that's what makes a difference.
I think what you said, Durant can fit into a system because he's such a good shooter. He can move without the ball. LeBron becomes the system, which is a tremendous compliment. But if LeBron went to this Warriors team instead of Durant,
they got to change the way they play.
They don't play this way. He's
a ball-dominant superstar.
Exactly. He'd be penetrating, kicking the Steph, kicking the Clay, but it wouldn't be this style of play. So I feel you on that. But I still got LeBron as the best player. All right, J.R. Smith, you mentioned earlier, tweeted Cavs in 7 after last night's game. Now, he says he was hacked. He told the Cleveland Plain Dealer newspaper, I'm smarter than that. So he says he didn't do it. Do you believe JR? This JR.
We need some truth serum now. I need a lie detector or whatever that stuff is Jack Bauer used to inject
He
people
done
with.
some things to make you think he wasn't hacked, right?
He had some moments during the game last night. And they would let me believe that he wasn't hacked. I think you have to say that, whether you tweet it or whether you just say it in the locker room amongst the other guys, that we're not going out like this. We're going, but you don't let the Twitter fingers get to it. And if he got hacked, somebody should be in trouble. Like, he should be putting somebody on Front Street. Go ahead and snitch this one time to make sure we don't think it's you, because it looks like you standing there with the Twitter symbol over your head, like, JR, you tweeted this.
See, now here's where we differ. I don't know whether he was hacked or not, but I don't mind the tweet. Now, I'm not saying it's the best look,
right?
But I want you to think that. I want that to be your mentality. I want every player in that Cavs locker room, and it's not going to happen, but those 12 or 15 or however many players they have to be thinking Cavs in 7.
Right.
That we are going to win this game in 7. They beat us 4 straight times. If they can do that, then we can beat them 4 straight times, because I include the regular season game.
Right.
They did it last year as far as coming back from a 3-1 deficit. That has to be the mentality. So I got to be honest, I wouldn't even be mad at JR. I'm sure somebody, if he did tweet it, got in his ear like, yo, man.
What are you doing?
But what? You think you making the Warriors mad? They want to pummel you no matter what.
Well, Draymond said it. They want to annihilate the Cavs.
So if I'm the Cavs, I'm upset about that. They said they're coming in here going to annihilate us, and then we're going to let them do it in our house?
But the problem is, to me, again, this is about what I was talking about in habits. You build the proper championship habits.
That ain't one of them.
Nobody's getting hacked in the other locker room. This is something, to me, nobody's showing up on the hoverboard to the finals game. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I love you, JR.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a Smith family thing. We all related. But this time we're going to leave you out.
You know what's interesting is last year who was having the Twitter problems? The Warriors. And it wasn't the play, but Steph's wife.
Exactly.
tweeting about the game being rigged and the finals out. So Twitter is dangerous, man.
Twitter is the devil.
Yeah.
You better be careful. It can get you in the finals.
Yeah, but I want that mentality though. You
No
got
question.
to believe we can win games.
Before we open the locker room doors and we walk in to do our business, that better be the last thing out of somebody's mouth is that we're not going out like this.
Yep.
We're going to win this and say, even if you know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the rallying cry.
It ain't going to happen.
I don't know, how long this conversation will last because it's going to be talked about all summer if the Warriors finish this off. But do you think if you had to match them up, virtual reality-wise, you put this 2017 Warriors team on the court right now against the 96 Bulls, are the Warriors a better team top to bottom than that 96 Bulls?
As I said earlier, the rules are such a big part of this. Back in 96, you could hammer people when they went to the lane. So Jordan was risking his, I don't want to say life, but risking his health every time he went to the hole, right? So imagine Steph doing that. That changes the dynamic. You could hand check. So Jordan and Pippen could kind of direct.
Yeah.
They were so strong, especially Jordan, they could almost direct guys where they could go when they're guarding them. You can't do that anymore. You put those rules into place, and I think the Bulls certainly have an advantage. However, as I said earlier, that was a year where the three-point line, instead of being 23-9 like it is now, it was 22 feet. That's how it is in the corners. So it was that way all around. So these Warriors would be drilling threes like it's nobody's business. Obviously, if you play today's rules, you can't touch, you can't hand check. That's a benefit to the Warriors. I just cannot look. Those Bulls, you could have had Jordan, Pippen, Harper was a good defender, Dennis Rodman on Draymond. I like Rodman in that. You obviously have Winnington or Luke Longley.
Whoever, it didn't matter, yeah.
But Tony Kukoc would play a big part in that series.
Huge.
Because he would play a lot more. He was a good shooter.
He's your Iguodala.
Yeah, exactly. And when they go small, now you got Kukoc with that group. So I think they could guard him a lot better than this Cavaliers team. I can't find it in my heart, I'm going to be honest, to bet against Michael Jordan.
I know.
Because once he started winning, he never lost.
And when you think about it in your heart of hearts, and you know what kind of competitor they were, I don't care what the rules are. I know Michael Jordan was a competitor of the highest order, without peer, as far as I can tell.
Competitor, yeah.
I cannot imagine him getting to a finals against anybody and allowing himself to be outworked, whatever the rules. As great as Steph and KD and these guys are, and this is what cracks me up when people talk about Jordan. Either I'm getting too old, because I got teenage sons that act like the NBA started when Kobe got in the league. And I'm always trying to tell them, like,
it's a lot of reporters like that, too.
I'm like, listen, they played ball before Twitter and Instagram. Like, trust me. I never saw Jordan get done the way some of these current stars who are winning championships, who have lost them. Thinking about it now, this Warriors team, for all the greatness they're showing us now, this is the same team that lost a 3-1 lead last year. Jordan never even played a game 7.
Yeah.
I can't dismiss that. I can't dismiss the Bulls championship medal just because this is fresher in my mind than what they did in 1996.
Nah, I'm with you. So I go with Jordan. I can't bet against him. I will say this. I don't think Jordan beat a team in the finals that was this good.
Right.
Because I think Jordan dominated an era where most great teams had 1, maybe 2 superstars. You had a big 3 era in the 80s, but he didn't beat those teams, whether it was Detroit, Boston, or the Lakers. And then, look at the teams. Lakers in 91, his first title, you had Magic and Worthy, Hall of Famers.
Right.
Then after that, Drexler in Portland, Barkley in Phoenix, Gary Payton in Seattle, although you had Sean Kemp, who was great at that time. And then Stockton and Malone in Utah. This is a team that I think if they keep winning, they're going to have 4 Hall of Famers.
Right.
And so this is in Big 3 era. I do think the teams LeBron is facing now, whether it was the Spurs we kind of talked about, even the Big 3 Celtics, I think they're better than the teams Jordan beat. Now, I don't think LeBron's better than Jordan, but I do think he's facing tougher opponents.
I think he's facing tougher opponents. I don't know that the competition is different, but somebody put this to me and gave me an analogy that I really didn't think about. do you think your iPhone 7 would work better than your flip phone? And I was like, yeah. He was like, well, what would make you think that the evolution of the game wouldn't provide for better players now than it did 20, 30 years ago? And I thought, I don't know if you can make that comparison, because the greatest car in 1996 will be comparable to whatever the greatest car is now. It's just a different quality.
Depends on the,
But for the time, the top of the line, whatever it is still the top of the line, whatever.
Yeah.
The problem would be, to me, is the style. Could Dennis Rodman, could Scottie Pippen, could they play out on the floor in different ways, away from the basket, on defense especially, the way you would need to defend this Warriors team? Because I just don't know the dimensions of the court and the way you have to defend if the Bulls will be as effective defensively against a team of this.
I think ultimately, on both sides, they would adjust to, like, people talk about LeBron. Would he go to the hole when they could hammer you when you drove? He would adjust. And I think the Bulls, if playing in this era, would have to adjust. I think Jordan, Pippen, all them would be better three-point shooters because you have to work on it more. And I think Steph and them would get used to getting fouled hard when you go to the basket. So I think great teams.
Maybe Steve Kerr would have shot the lights off.
He would have been a great shooter. He would have had trouble being on the floor, though.
He wouldn't been able to guard nobody.
Exactly. I don't know how he's defended. But I hear you. I will say this about today's players versus yesteryear. I do think the players, they're clearly more athletic.
Yeah.
They shoot better,
They
especially
take
from
much better
range.
care of their bodies.
Exactly.
Year-round, you know what I mean?
Question.
You're not
No
worrying
question.
about Rodman coming in shape.
Exactly.
You know, Draymond, they show up in shape. So it's
And I think handles are better, largely because they let you carry. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous the way they carry, but they let them, they have better handles. Last question. Have the Warriors become Durant's team? And if so, what does that mean for Steph and his legacy?
Yes. And I thought this before Durant went down and missed 20 games. I was writing. I do the MVP ladder every week during the season for the last 3 years on NBA.com. And I was taking a lot of heat from fans. How could you possibly have Kevin Durant in your top 3 for MVP when he went and joined a 73-win team? And I'm like, he went from the Thunder to the Warriors and instantly became the best player on far and away the best team regular season-wise in the league. Why would he not transfer from the same spot he had with Oklahoma City to that spot with the Warriors? It has to be his team. And when they recruited him as such.
Yes, right.
When Steph deferred to him all throughout the first half of the season, that was the goal. So when you got to Game 3 of the finals and you needed somebody to close out the business, Kevin Durant would feel empowered to do that. This is calculated. And give credit to Bob Myers and those players in Golden State for having the ability to suppress their own ego and allow him to step into that space on that team, because we talk about how something would have went down in the previous era. What superstar would have gave up his spot? What two-time MVP, unanimous MVP, would have stepped aside for another great player to come and do what Durant has done for this Warriors team? I don't think there's any doubt it's his team. And I think Steph's fine with that, because Steph is going to be shimmying with another ring.
Yep. And many rings to come.
Exactly. And I think that is bigger for the Warriors than any individual honor. The fact that they're going to be a championship outfit for years to come.
I'll say this. I think Durant's their best player. I think that's pretty clear, especially all-around player. I do think that Steph may be their most important player. Maybe. Because obviously his plus-minus is off the charts. I think it's the best in the league. But you mentioned earlier when he was deferring to KD. And they were great, but they weren't what they are now. And when KD went out with the injury, Steph kind of reemerges, that old Steph. And the great thing for them is that when KD came back, he stayed the old Steph. So, Durant's leading them to the finals championship. He's the leading scorer. But Steph is playing with that old swagger. He's taking those crazy shots. But I think that's critical for them.
Yeah.
I think they have to play loose. He has to feel like he can take any shot he wants. Because KD can get his on fewer shots. He can get his without them necessarily running a lot of stuff for him. And he can contribute more defensively and stuff like that than Steph can.
Yeah.
So offensively, I think they have to kind of run through Steph because KD gonna get his anyway.
Regardless.
But
I think the other part about it we need to make sure we point out too is the culture of the Warriors organization in the way that's Steph.
yes,
And that doesn't change
Yes.
with Durant.
yes,
Because their best organic, homegrown talent, the guy they crafted this whole thing around,
great point.
has the humbleness about him that he would allow for Clay, Draymond, or anybody else to step up and lead and be the face of what they have going on.
You're right.
We couldn't get that from every star in this league right now.
A lot of stars,
won't do it.
They would have been like, man, I
I'm
don't
good.
want Kevin
I'm not
Durant
begging.
here.
Think about it. What have you heard from some of these other players around the league? I'm not begging somebody to
Yep,
come play with me.
That's right. That's right.
That's different.
That's right. That's right. And I'll say this too. Like we said, Durant's the best player. But I don't think the players are so concerned about it. And I don't think we, as intelligent basketball people, have to be concerned or label it so-and-so's team. Like with Magic and the Showtime Lakers, was it Magic's team or was it Kareem's? I mean, Magic was the face with the smiling. Some players will tell you Kareem was the most
one who
important.
set the tone. No
Yeah,
question.
like when you have great Hall of Famers that fit together, I don't know that you have to label it. Sometimes it'll happen because one player is clearly better. Bird, Isaiah in Detroit, but I think that, Moses and Dr. J.
Right.
Dr. J didn't have to take play second fiddle, even though Moses was kind of the
was
leader.
difference.
Yeah.
You know what it is? History will tell us, and we're going to need some distance from this. But it's going to be in how we remember these teams. You said it. The Showtime Lakers, the Big Three Celtics,
Yep.
the Bad Boys Pistons, the Jordan Bulls. Jordan is really the only one who gets his name in the marquee.
Yeah, he kind of is the reason. I mean, obviously at times you said it was so-and-so's team, but for the most part, that started with Jordan.
'Cause it was
where
always his team.
Exactly. Every team had to
The
be
Shaq
labeled
and
as
Kobe
somebody's
Lakers.
team. Yeah, that's a great
I mean,
point.
think about how we identify these teams 10, 20 years later.
Yep.
That's going to tell us. So when we talk about this team in 20 years and we're talking about the whatever Warriors, are we going to say the Steph, KD Warriors or the
Big Four
the
Warriors,
Big Four
whatever.
Warriors? That will tell us whose team it
Yeah.
was more so than anything we think or talk about in the moment.
Yeah, and I just think Steph should not get short shrift
No.
or criticized because Durant is their best player.
Not
like
at all.
I don't think. In fact, I don't think it'll tarnish his legacy by any means. He's going to win more rings. I mean, this will be 2. He may
With
have
more to
4
come.
or 5 rings by the time he's done, if not more. And he can go down as one of the greatest players of all time. I said last year when he was in the middle of the regular season, that great run, that I think Isaiah Thomas is the best small player ever.
Yes.
I think Steph could challenge him for that. If he wins these rings, even if Durant's the best player on the team, several rings, he's going to pass Isaiah as that.
He's going to pass Isaiah and AI
Yep.
and anybody else that was in that category because of the number of rings and the fact that he shoots it better than anybody we've ever seen. And I think that will separate him in the final analysis. That will separate him from his other all-time greats. But I always say it, Chris, when you're trying to parse the greatest of all the greats, when you're talking about Rushmore and
Yep.
that small conversation of players who fit in that discussion of who's the greatest of all time, there have to be some ways to differentiate between the greatest of the greats. And that's when you start getting into the minutia of championships, shooting percentage. You start nitpicking little things that makes one guy greater than the other one.
Yeah.
Nobody is ever going to give up their spot in that conversation. I've talked to enough of these guys to know they all want in.
That's right.
But that's our job. That's what we do,
Yep.
to come back historically and put it in some kind of context.
Yep. Nah, you're right. Look, man, great conversation, great
Always.
knowledge. I really
Always.
enjoyed it. And thank you for tuning in to In the Zone.